What's up, folks? I'm Chris, your MLB writer here at OccupyFantasy.com, here with a look at the main slates on Wednesday, May 11th on FanDuel, DraftKings, and Yahoo. We have a nice, modest 7-game slate tonight across anywhere you can play, and I think a pretty straightforward way to attack it at this early juncture of the day. First thing, as always, we look at our starting pitchers that are available to us to select from. Looking at our model, there's a clear favorite at starting pitcher tonight to stick into your lineups. It certainly makes decisions easy on FanDuel, I'd say that. Shohei Ohtani, slate high 16.8 OF index. No one really in his arena tonight for a projection. Facing Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has been hitting well other than last night. Tampa Bay strikes out at an above average rate. You see Ohtani has the highest strikeout per inning pitched projection in our model tonight at 1.44. Over the last year of his work, he's averaged about 1.26, so definitely still have an adjustment upwards here for him. And his StatCast profile is reasonable, giving up slightly concerning batted ball distance, but his average exit velocity against is fairly low. So the contact that Ohtani has been conceding has not been of the highest quality, is the best way to describe that. Ohtani just a slight minus 129 moneyline favorite tonight, and that is because the opposing starting pitcher, Shane McClanahan, for the Tampa Bay Rays, is also a pretty high-quality arm. Now, we see his OF index is just 13.6 tonight. Fairly big drop-off, especially for somebody that is projected for 1.25 strikeouts per innings pitched. Is there any reason why we wouldn't just slot in McClanahan alongside Ohtani? I guess you could argue the salary is a little high, but sometimes that's not a problem in MLB DFS. The biggest thing to me that stands out is the Angels themselves. The Angels are averaging the most DraftKings points per plate appearance as a lineup, so you can make a case to get away from McClanahan and play another option here. The problem tonight is, who is that? We have Jose Urquidy with the Houston Astros as the third best option here. He's a slight moneyline favorite. Maybe worth the average exit velocity against concerning, batted ball distance, one of the higher rankings on this slate. Not a super high strikeout projection. We could look to Miles Mikolas with the Cardinals, who's a massive minus 220 moneyline favorite, biggest favorite on this slate, but he's not projected to do much in the strikeout department. So that means if things get a little hairy for Mikolas and he gives up some runs, he's not the type of guy that can salvage the outing. Typically, he's not the type of guy that can salvage the fantasy outing by going back to work and racking up a bunch of strikeouts to get you a lot of fantasy points. So that's something to consider with Mikolas. Probably a good low-risk pitcher tonight at that money line number and at that salary number on DraftKings. I guess the next place to go after that, Ian Anderson. He's going to be favored tonight against the Red Sox, minus 129 moneyline favorite, projected for almost a strikeout per innings pitched. Concerning batted ball data here as well in the exit velocity department. Tyler McGill with the Mets. He actually projecting for a pretty low strikeout per innings pitched number tonight, despite averaging 1.1 strikeouts per innings pitched over the last year in Major League Baseball. So that's because Washington is actually swinging the bat fairly well right now. Washington is the number one team in terms of avoiding the strikeout. They have the lowest strikeout rate as a team, and they're also hitting for the highest batting average in Major League Baseball over the last month. Nationals also averaging a decent amount of fantasy points per plate appearance, so that's why McGill is severely downgraded here in the strikeout department and in his OF index department, despite being a really decent minus 182 favorite tonight. I've talked my way all the way down to Boston starter Nathan Eovaldi, and as a Red Sox fan myself, I certainly want to find ways to put him into my lineups tonight as our best pitcher, but he is facing the Braves. The Braves are a fairly tough spot tonight. Braves are striking out at an above average rate in Major League Baseball, one of the highest positive adjustments, I'd say, to Eovaldi's projection in this spot. We have him at just 0.96 strikeouts per innings pitched. I personally think that's a little low. I think he's good for a little closer to like 1.1 here potentially, maybe even higher. But going to be high risk. He's a slight underdog and the line movement is going away from him. And after we go below Eovaldi, I don't know if I really want to even come close to remotely considering any of these guys. So, long way of going about it and saying I think you want to definitely play Ohtani in any lineup that you're building tonight, especially if you just build a handful of lineups. And your second pitcher selection on DraftKings and Yahoo is definitely a little bit of a crapshoot tonight. There's nothing wrong with taking these two guys that are facing each other and putting them in the same lineup, by the way. That's perfectly fine. So feel free to go ahead and just go 1-2 here in the model. But if I were to draw a line, I would probably go no further lower than Eovaldi tonight and just focus on maybe these top 6 pitchers in building some of my MME lineups. That's a long way of saying pitching is not very good tonight. Now, in the hitting department, we see that we have Matt Bush as the lowest ranked starter in our model here. Now, Bush is actually more of like a reliever opener type, so that's why his OF index is so low. So who we're really looking to target tonight, in my opinion, is actually Spencer Watkins with the Baltimore Orioles and Aaron Sanchez with the Washington Nationals. Our pitchers we should be targeting with some bats. Let's see how the Cardinals and the Mets rank in the Occupy model this afternoon. The Cardinals are up here number 2 in the Occupy model. Really good overall profile. The number 2 OF index stack, the Occupy Fantasy Index, our proprietary ranking metric. Respectable isolated power ranking. We see that we have the Cardinals 4th on this slate. We have the Cardinals 2nd by projected weighted on base average, and the Cardinals have the 2nd highest implied team total tonight. Now, the Mets also have the highest implied team total on this slate, but we do rank them a little lower by Occupy Fantasy Index and projected isolated slugging. They have a really high weighted on base average ranking, number 3 on the slate, and we see that that's a number that typically correlates with fantasy points much higher than these other numbers on a nightly basis. So WOBA is a pretty good measure of a potential floor for hitter production. So I do think the Mets are strongly in play here. Sanchez allowing a really high 455 weighted on base average to right-handed hitters in particular. This is a right-handed hitter heavy lineup from the Mets, so certainly see paths to the Mets being one of the better teams to play this evening. The Cardinals, Watkins allows a 318 isolated slugging, 440 weighted on base average to right-handed hitters, so that's why the Cardinals rank very highly across the board for us tonight. Again, elite thresholds on that. Anything above 340 for WOBA, anything above about 170 for ISO is considered elite. In our model, we look at the individual hitters tonight, sorted by Occupy Fantasy Index. No surprise, we see someone like Byron Buxton or Ronald Acuna up here at the top. We do see 3 Cardinal hitters here inside the top portion of our model here. Looks like the top 12 or so. We filter just for the Cardinals themselves, them being my favorite offense to stack tonight. I like that we have the 2, 3, 4, 5 hitters in the order, even the 6th hitter in the order. Write down Occupy Fantasy Index as the top 5 hitters to roster. I'm not really looking much deeper than that for a first look here. I do think those are the guys I'm going to try to get into my lineup tonight against Spencer Watkins. All these guys, O'Neill, Arenado, Yepez, Goldschmidt, and Carlson. Really strong options tonight. Carlson is a left-handed hitter, so the matchup not as strong against lefties with Watkins, but do like the correlation that he offers here tonight. So, over on DraftKings, we can slot in Ohtani as pitcher number 1. We can slot in these 5 Cardinals I was just talking about, and we still have $49.75 per player remaining to build out the rest of our lineups. You can go with McClanahan, still have 32, 33. I think that's more than okay here tonight. Should be able to find a path to filling these other positions here. But if you don't want McClanahan, there is still other options like Michaelis, who's in that correlation here with your Cardinals hitters, and gives you a little bit more money to work with, or some of those other top options in our model tonight. Over on FanDuel, again, fairly straightforward. You can just go with Shohei. You can play 4 Cardinal hitters, and you have $2,500 per player remaining, where salary is a little more friendly over on FanDuel. We can definitely find a path to a lineup here that we like by lock tonight. Now, you're going to have to keep an eye out for the daily plug at OccupyFantasy.com. We will post that by about an hour before lock at the absolute latest tonight. That's where we'll have our final rankings for starting pitchers, stacks, and the hitters in those stacks that we want to play this evening. If you want to talk about MLB DFS up until then, you can consider joining our Discord. There's a link to do so below the description of every video. And once again, we will talk to you tomorrow. Brian will be live on the channel for the early slate for more MLB DFS.